Hey there, Lead the Team Nation. Welcome back for another fun episode. Today, I have for you Guy Burgstahler, who is president over at Vitacost.com, where he started out as the chief marketing officer, then quickly transitioned into the president's role once the business was integrated into the Kroger enterprise. Vitacost.com is a leading online retailer and direct marketer of natural, organic, and sustainable health and wellness products. Now back to Guy. He's also served in senior leadership roles over at so many companies that you're familiar with, like Albertsons, Garden of Life, Tractor Supply Company, and Dick's Sporting Goods. Guy, welcome to Lead the Team.
Good morning, Ben. Nice to see you. And thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, I've been looking forward to this. I love this segment of in this industry. I think it's going to be such an interesting conversation. But before we get into that, y'all, we were just talking about some of our days on opposite side of the sporting retail spectrum. With this background in Dick's Sporting Goods, I used to work for the Sports Authority, and we were just commenting about how those two businesses attracted so many ex-jocks, and then didn't always pan out too well on the basketball court. Did you play basketball?
Speak for yourself, Ben. I did okay.
Okay, all right. Well, I know competitive sports is part of your background. Tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. So, ever since I was little, I've just been blessed to grow up in an area where sports meant a lot. And I've learned so much from sports and athletics that have translated to my professional career, and was fortunate to accomplish an awful lot. Never quite made it to the big, but did get recruited and somewhat drafted for Major League Baseball, but never really panned out. So played my college time, and then actually the best experiences I had were when I was in that 20 to 30 range and played a lot of tournament ball, basketball and baseball up and down the East Coast, and it was a joy. I met so many great people, and again, athletics is just a huge part of my life.
When you say tournament ball, what do you mean by tournament ball?
So believe it or not, there are tournaments and competitions, especially basketball, baseball, where I excelled, where when you're out of college and, you're not really competing at a pro level for sure. They just have hosted events, hosted tournaments, and there's kids and people and adults from, various states that migrate to these tournaments. And it's typically over a 3, 4, 5 day, weekend, and you just play, whatever, whether it's baseball or basketball. And, the competition is incredibly stiff, and the talent is off the charts. And it was just a whole bunch of fun. And it was young in my marital days as well. So it drove my wife nuts, quite often. But as I used to say to her, until my body breaks, I need to do this. Now that it's broken, I don't have to do it anymore.
Eventually, especially in basketball, I feel like something does get messed up eventually. For me, it was the incessant spraining of ankles that just not go away.
Speaking of that, Ben, both of mine are now purple, and I think that's the way they'll be the rest of my life.
Permanent spraining.
Yeah.
So thinking about that, what have you taken away from your competitive sports days that informs your leadership?
Oh, so much. I mean, the correlation between team sport, individual sport too, but team sport and the business world are immense. There's so many correlations. One, the ability to adapt to changing situations, quickly and make decisions, based on your environment very, very quickly. The other is to get along with a whole bunch of different types of personalities. In order to form a great team, you've got all walks of life, right? You've got very aggressive folks, you've got very passive folks, you've got leadership type people, you've got tactical type executors, and you have to understand what makes them tick. And that's what drives a team forward. And then just from a drive perspective, the thrill of competition and the drive to win and succeed is as evident in the athletic world, certainly as it is in the professional world. And then practice, right? Practice. You've got to put in a lot of reps in order to get good. And I think that holds very true in the professional world as well. You can't expect to know everything. You can't expect to read a document one time and move on. You've got to constantly study, constantly improve. So those are some very, very similar attributes.
Yeah, I mean, so many great ways to think about it. And sometimes, parents are thinking about, well, what should I get my kid involved in? And I always say, I mean, sports is a great place to start. Even if they're not dominating the league, it's a great way to learn about team dynamics. Um, when do you, so looking, it sounds like a lot of those reflections are of course, looking back, or if you're planning on getting older, you're starting to process this stuff. When do you, and I'm just always curious, did you have a coach that sort of made this connection to life and sports, or did you just kind of read about it, or where does that key reflection point where you're like, wait, maybe playing basketball and baseball is more than just winning the game. Maybe this is going to help me succeed in life in some way.
Man, well, I love that question. I think, the reality there, it's all of the above, right? So to become a leader, and thankfully I was raised by some really great parents and have some incredible siblings, but I really believe that to be a great leader, and not to even say that I am one, but it's all of the above. You have to be very, very aware of your surroundings. You have to constantly, read and follow up and improve. But also, I've been exposed to a ton of different coaching styles, and from each one of them, I've gleaned something different. And the same in the professional world. I've been around a bit. I've worked for some great companies, and especially at the senior executive level, at the CEO level, I've worked for a variety of different personas. And I look back at all of them, and you can say one was better than the other, blah, blah, blah. Not true. The reality is it's the blend of all of them. It's the experience that you glean from each and every different, type of persona that adds value to who you are as a leader.
Yeah, I like that. Someone said to me, Ben, there are frustrating bosses, but there are no bad bosses, because they're all gonna be someone that you can learn from. Sometimes things what not to do.
In the heat
But
of
it's something.
the moment, it could get frustrating, right? But when you look back on it, it's pretty incredible.
Well, so shifting gears a little bit, in your leadership journey, have you ever had to fake it till you make it?
I think a simple answer there would be yes. And I think if most people that have, find their way into a leadership role, if they said otherwise, I'd ask them to reconsider. There's always that point in time when you have to have the faith and confidence in yourself to get to a next level. Sometimes that opportunity or those opportunities don't easily present themselves. So you've got to prepare and be ready without a doubt to the best of your ability. You have to always be prepared for that next step in order to grow. But even when you grow into it, there are surprises that you just did not expect, right? Or you just had no experience in, and you kind of have to gut your way through those and be transparent and be open-minded about it, and not take the bravado that you do know everything. And I think, at least in my experience, that type of vulnerability has built a lot of trust with my colleagues and my cohorts to say, hey, this guy's willing to listen to me. He's willing to learn from me. And the trust and the equity you build out of that helps you become a better leader and helps you influence people better in the future.
Yeah, I like that. And it also helps, just keeping that in mind to take the role that pops up or the opportunity, even if you haven't done exactly that same job before. I mean, looking at your background, you've moved from different companies. You're probably thrown into different industries sometimes, and it seems like you've always, found a way to persevere there. What was there one time where you really felt like you had to step into that fake it till you make it deal, or maybe you felt particularly vulnerable because you bit off a big opportunity, but knew that you'd have to make a big jump?
You're calling me out here, Ben. You're calling me out. I would give an example that's very, very near and dear to me, and it goes back. It predates my Dick's Sporting Goods experience. Just prior, I was with PetSmart, and PetSmart was in a major transition, and the person that hired me into the role, and I was in the marketing discipline at the time, and leaned heavy on the creative side. And the person that hired me into the role with the chief marketing officer at the time was released like within 3 weeks of me starting. So my boss was released, and I ended up reporting direct to the president of the company. And I was kind of a kid, more or less, at the time. I had some good experience on the agency side and was an entrepreneur, ran an agency, but this was a new corporate world for me. And I remember the first time and stepping into a presentation, we were reinventing the brand. It was, kind of a big deal, and a lot of really talented, awesome people at PetSmart. And I was this kind of kid sitting at the conference room, board table making this presentation. And never in my life have I utilized the aspect of humor in a more meaningful way, because there were some glitches in the presentation where it was uncertain where I was going. It was uncertain what the reaction was going to be. And, just using some lighthearted humor and letting my guard down a bit, and being very nervous about doing that, by the way, in that type of an environment, totally opened up the landscape, and like guards were let down, and I felt part of the group almost instantaneously. And it was such a rewarding experience that I've carried with me, throughout.
Okay.
There's a sensitivity to exposing yourself like that, for sure. But for me, it worked like a charm.
So I'm assuming it was like self-depreciating humor in the moment,
Actually,
or
in that case, actually, not really. Not
okay.
really. Although I've done that plenty of times as well.
Do you
No,
fall back on humor a good bit when, like, in those difficult moments, to sort of shift around?
Yeah, I think, to say humor these days might be a little extreme. It's levity, right? It's understanding the audience and knowing that most times when there's a problem to solve, there's high anxiety. There's high anxiety amongst the group, and having the ability to kind of understand that and internalize that, and then react in a way that gets people to relax a little bit. Like we're running a business, it's super important. But no, you're not good to anyone if you're filled with anxiety and concern. So alleviating that through levity is a very good thing. And oftentimes, to your point, Ben, self-deprecation works wonders. People let their guard down a bit when they know that you're making yourself vulnerable.
I can already see a theme: leading with levity.
Oh, I like it. I like it.
Having been in the retail world, though, it can get intense. You're trying to meet certain seasonal things where things got to be on the shelf, the right things at the right price. And if you miss that window of opportunity, you're stuck with a bunch of inventory and other problems. When did you get hooked on retail? Because you went deep on retail and you just stuck with it. You had a few times where you swerved into, Garden of Life, I guess supplying food to the retail industry. But what was it that drew you into retail and kept you there?
Yeah, so I started my career, as I referenced, on the agency side, and that exposed me to a variety of clients in the educational, platform, financial platform, retail platform, manufacturing, you name it. But when I broke out of the agency world and really chose to transition my career, the opportunity came with an old friend, Circuit City. And I'm not sure if you remember Circuit City or not, but I assume we're similar in age. I'm sure you do.
We had that. We had that in my small town in Alabama.
Yep. And it was a great company at the time. And what hooked me was the gentleman that from the board of directors that recruited me in and actually, signed the work that got me the job. He allowed me to explore well beyond my marketing and advertising discipline. And he allowed me to learn from the best, the merchandising side of things, finance, HR, logistics, supply chain, and really, kind of said, Guy, if you're going to learn and grow and really improve yourself as a marketer, you need to understand the whole business. It just happened to be retail, but that hooked me. I mean, I just was fascinated with the discipline and all the different touch points that it involved and how to bring them all together, for the benefit of the business. That fascinated me. And then, as you know, Ben, when you get into a certain discipline and you succeed at it, the next opportunities seem to follow suit, right? They seem to be in a similar glide path. And that's what happened to me. And I was so fortunate to land with such quality brands and brands of passion, like the pet industry. Like I'm an animal and a pet lover extraordinaire, certainly the sporting goods industry, even, farm and fleet with Tractor Supply, just the outdoors and the work ethic involved with those types of people. So I became fascinated with the lifestyle and certainly fascinated with the business discipline.
You've also said that you've learned about leadership from your pets and your love of animals. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think animals bring so much to your life, and we've got dogs and cats, but I think I've had pretty much every animal at some stretch along the way, and they just bring so much to your life in terms of adding empathy and adding compassion, understanding that if you treat them with kindness and with love and respect, that what you get back is 100-fold. That's not always the case with people, but most often it is with pets. And it's just a huge, learning experience. And also, they are somewhat reliant on you, so they can't necessarily take care of themselves, all the time. And from a leadership perspective, knowing that you have to involve yourself, you have to put yourself out there, you have to make sure that they're okay, not unlike the colleagues that, you're responsible for in a leadership role. So all of that, has been a great learning experience. I think at the root of it, though, is just that what you get back, if you do it well, what you get back in return is 10x.
Well, this is a timely conversation for me because we have a 6-month-old Shih Tzu dog, and we've been puppy when we got him. And I have to admit, I was not really hardcore on board with it, but my wife and my daughter worked on me hard. And I have enjoyed it, but it has pushed me, and it helps me realize, I was like, I often think about this. I'm like, it's really helped me realize how self-centered I really am, especially with a puppy. With sleep, it's like having a kid again. But
so true.
Taking him out periodically, and we have 3 people and 1 pet, so we can sort of tag team the effort.
Sure.
But I can see the empathy side of what you're saying, especially because they're gonna. And also, one of the things that comes up for me is how present the dog is. The dog does not really care about the past or the future. The dog cares about right now.
Well said, Ben. Well said.
And it really draws me into that. So I'm also like, we have this. We're in this neighborhood. I like to go out for walks and whatnot periodically. And it's changed my walks quite a bit because a little Shih Tzu dog does not walk as fast. He wants to sniff a lot. So I have to slow down. But one of my other guests, I was like, he recommended, he's like, you can walk more slowly, just get a weight vest. So I've got a 30-pound weight vest that I'll put on with this little Shih Tzu. And I probably
You're getting your work too.
Wait, what's that?
You're getting your work too.
Well, that's the idea. Bending over to pick up dog poop with a 30-pound weight vest can be a little interesting. It works the abs a little bit to do that. But anyway, it's there are many ways, I think, to think about pets and leadership. And I don't think we've ever had that in 195 episodes. This hasn't come up. So
that's awesome.
So
that's awesome.
Going back to your career, one of the things that came up for me in looking, like, this is a guy who has really, focused so much and been successful in brick and mortar retail. Now here you are leading the charge, in a .com direct to consumer retail operation. What shifts or changes have you had to rethink about your leadership style in this new world, if at all?
Yeah, no, there's plenty. And I think the biggest of which, however, is the customer service component. It's super important in any business, right? I think it's the number one, thing to pay attention to in any business model. But in a pure play e-commerce model, the opportunities for customers to not choose you is so much more, because you don't have them contained in an environment, right? They can very easily look at a screen and compare and contrast. And it's very hard to present your products, especially when you're selling the same products that others sell. It's very hard to present yours in a way that influences them to purchase with you. So it's that full customer cycle that you have to pay even more attention to on the front side and the back side, because in the shopping decision, in that part of the shopping journey, it's way more competitive. I mean, it's touch of a button competitive. And, people say that in a brick and mortar, well, yeah, you have access to your phone and access to your app, and you can look up another retailer and see if it's cheaper there or whatever. But you are in that venue, and your mindset is in a purchasing mindset, and you're inspired by that 360-degree space. In e-commerce, it's very, very different. So really paying attention to that pre-customer experience and that post-customer experience amplifies tremendously in a .com model.
So what advice do you have for leaders who are entering the e-commerce world, or maybe they've been in the e-commerce world, but that's not been their primary focus, and now, hey, this is a big deal for them, and they've got to be rethinking their leadership style?
Yeah, it's pay very, very close attention to the audience that you're looking to acquire, and learn as much about them as possible so that you can create the most dynamic, the most superior pre and post customer experience. And then when it comes to that point of decision, which is whether it's the app in a mobile modal or the desktop in a web modal, when it comes time to that, you have to be as concerned about the process as you are about the aesthetic. And it's no different than brick and mortar retail in that regard. Like, you want people to be engaged and enthralled in the environment, but when it comes and inspired, but when it comes time to make that purchasing decision, that's mano a mano, and you got to really, really take care of that. It's similar in the .com world, except the modals are very, very different. So you have to make sure that aesthetic is inspiring and informative and entertaining and engaging. But then when it comes to that decision point, that checkout, that better be clean and simple and, very, very easy to relate to on the customer side. Like, don't throw a lot of guesswork into that piece of it, or you will lose that customer.
You say that your genuine passion for your profession and relentless drive to learn has opened many doors. What doors has it opened?
Pretty much every opportunity I've had. I've been very, very fortunate to be presented with a stream of incredible opportunities. Some have lasted longer than others, but all have taught me something very, very significant along the way. But I think, the drive and the passion and where those doors have opened, I think back on it now, and sometimes I wonder myself, was it just luck, or was it some, sort of like master plan that I intuitively created? Because although I will say that consumer electronics wasn't necessarily my passion at that time, we were at Circus, we were at the forefront of changing the consumer electronics landscape, and I got to be at the forefront of that, so I became passionate. It led to an opportunity in the pet industry, and way prior to PetSmart, I've been a pet and animal, lover extraordinaire. That led to an opportunity at Dick's Sporting Goods. And I've been an athlete, diehard athlete and passionate athlete, my whole life. So those types of doors, again, were they coincidence? Were they some sort of, unconstructed master plan? I'm not so sure. But once I got on that path, I started to seek those out, right? So from that point on, it wasn't just take anything or look at any opportunity. It was find opportunities that met my passions, that aligned with my passions. So part of it was a little bit of, a little bit of luck, a little bit of opportunity. And then once I got on that train, it was like, okay, now it's a strategy. Now it's a strategy, because the enjoyment that comes from working in a passion discipline is beyond explanation. And I feel bad for people that are working in a role or in a situation that they just dread, because I can't imagine that. I mean, I'm energized every day, and a large part of it is because I love it. The health and wellness space, oh my gosh, what a great time to be in this business. Natural, organic, sustainable, helps people, helps the planet, like what an awesome time to be in that space. So I'm
Well,
waxing out a bit there.
yeah, well, no, I love it. And it's a great reminder to people what can happen. And also, I think it's important for people to think about this because sometimes when you're a business leader in an industry that you're passionate about. So, sports, pets, sustainable, organic, these are circles and industries of people, but you've got a skill set that applies to all of them. So there's some people, maybe listeners, may be frustrated and they're thinking about, well, I need to go I want to be an artist, or I want to go pursue my passion in terms of a career. But it's another to think about, well, maybe I can be involved in it from a different perspective and bring my business background or whatever background you have, listeners have, and apply it to that industry and be connected there.
Wow, man, you hit on something. If you don't mind me sharing a
Yeah.
little bit of a story, because you just hit on something really meaningful to me. I went into the advertising business way back when, coming out of school, as a designer. I was so creatively motivated in every aspect of creative architecture, three-dimensional design, copywriting, graphic design, even fine arts, music, whatever the case may be. And I thought, if I don't follow my passion in those regards, then I will never live up to my personal expectations. And what I learned was exactly what you said. If you follow them blindly without a motivation towards a career, they will be more of a hobby than a career. And hobby's probably a wrong word to use there. But if you're fortunate enough to be able to find a way to combine the two, to combine that passion, with a profession, and then exploit that and manifest that, that's when the true, opportunities open. So I came into as a graphic designer, and then was given opportunities to learn about business. Yes. And it was like, okay, how can creativity influence business? And then that parlayed into more of a marketing type of opportunity. It parlayed more into a business leadership, opportunity, all because I stayed open-minded to, where does this path that I'm so passionate about lead to other things to be passionate about?
Yeah, so many great insights in that, and a great example of how to leverage your skill set to move you into different industries. It's very similar to how I ended up doing podcasting during the pandemic. I enjoyed meeting with people, training, leadership training and whatnot, but a lot of that in person went away during the pandemic, and at least in person, and went virtual, and that really turned things around. So I'm kind of bringing some of that to podcasting, and now, here we are with a podcasting enterprise. So it's
awesome, huh?
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing how you can do that. But if you focus on what you enjoy, what you're passionate about, there's often a way to apply it to the business world. And I think when you said earlier about a hobby, I think, to me, that feels right, because for some people that is enough. Like, you know what, I'm going to go to work, I'm going to do my job during the day, and then I'll save my passion for the weekends. But there's an opportunity and I think you said the word open and minded. If you're open minded about how you can apply your passion and your other skill sets, you can often find that overlap and that sweet spot and make something really cool from it. And I love the fact that you've done it several times. It's usually it's like one passion. You've got pets, athletics, sustainable, organic. Now you just need to find a company that brings that all together. So you can bring, does VitaCost do pet food?
We do.
Okay.
We do.
All right.
Yeah.
That fuels athletes.
And we have sport and fitness products as well, right? And the cleanest amongst the group. So it's all tied together.
Yeah. So where there's a will, there's a way. Man, that is so cool. Last question here, maybe two more questions. What you say that you owe the majority of your success to your wife and kids. How so?
It sounds a bit cliche, and I grew up in a little bit different time than today. I remark to some of my younger colleagues, I try to remind them, that they have it, call it better, call it different, I'm not sure, but back when I was raising kids in my generation, it really wasn't an option. Like there was no paternal leave. Let's put it that way. And
Yeah.
when we started having kids, that was something that I was frustrated by. Not that I wanted the time off, but to get to where you ultimately want to get to professionally is a lot of sacrifice. It's a lot of time sacrifice, and it typically comes with your family because you have to devote so much time and energy towards learning your craft and mastering your craft and all of the business ethics that go around with that. And where does the sacrifice come in? It's in your family. And I was fortunate to have a wife who wanted to be a mom, to the core. So when we had kids, it was she wanted nothing else but to be that person and support me in helping my profession grow so that I could help support the family in the way that we wanted to be supported. And she was also very understanding of those time issues and knew that that's what it was going to take and supported me every stretch of the way. I can remember times when I worked 3-4 jobs, literally worked around the clock. And she would bring the kids when they were very young. I remember this one specifically. I got parts out of a warehouse from 11 o'clock p.m. to 5 o'clock a.m. I sat by myself in a warehouse, and people would come, salespeople from around the country would come to this warehouse to pick up parts for their day's journey. And she would bring the kids at that hour of the night to the warehouse just to spend time with me. And in the downtime, as there was a lot, we would color, we would draw, we would make things. I would let them ride the conveyor belts. We'd go spin around in chairs. We'd do all that stuff. And she did that, she would control her schedule and the kids' schedule to help support me and my career. So I owe an awful lot to her and to those kids. And we had fun doing it. Don't get me wrong. It was pretty joyful.
Yeah. A great reminder that parenting is a team sport. It may be the ultimate team sport. And you can, as you said about teams earlier, you can design your team in many ways and still win. But the key is, I think, in all this out here is be thoughtful about it. It sounds like you and your wife are on the same page when kids came around, the roles that you're going to play, and have that conversation. Probably have it before you have kids, if possible, to figure that out. Some people wait, and sometimes it works out fine.
Good advice, Pat. Good advice.
Yeah, it's all right. So, Guy, this has been an awful lot of fun today. What's your parting thought for our listeners?
Yeah, I think I use a term in my own kind of persona makeup, Ben, called that I like to say confident humility. And to me, it's probably, it's something that I have manifested over the years and tried to build my persona around more and more, because I can't say enough about, in a leadership role, the need to have that level of confidence and project that level of confidence that inspires people. But if it's not combined with humility, if it's combined with bravado, nobody wants to listen to you, right? And you very quickly shut people off. But if it's combined with humility, meaning I don't know everything, I want to learn from you. I don't care what level of the organization you're at, but you have something to contribute that is meaningful. Let's build on that. Let's grow that. That perspective, that confident humility perspective, has really been the hallmark to all of the successes I've had. And when I try to mentor people, now at this stage of my career, it's what I try to instill in them the most is look at that through a very, very, very projected lens, understand what I'm saying when I use that term, and then, understand the importance of it in building your own career path.
Such great advice there. And I think it's a great way to wind this up, because I think that's something that's probably come through already to listeners in the interview, but it really puts a nice bow on it. But confidence and humility combined create a growth mindset. It creates listening, innovation, creativity, because you're open to what's happening and you're building a team that's going to communicate to you versus you just communicating to them what to do. And it seems like a great way to really keep things going and build momentum and have success with your team. Guy, thanks for coming on the show today.
Ben, thank you so much, man. Good to meet you.